Bring us 2 roasted chickens and something else good, then be gone. My mother is frightened. She has not yet learned to speak to jinn." The jinn vanished and in a moment brought a table covered with a fine leather cloth. Upon it stood 12 golden dishes filled with all manner of delicious foods and 2 pitchers of rosewater sweetened with sugar and chilled with snow. The lamp's servant set the table and vanished, and Aladdin and his mother ate until they were full. Aladdin's mother cleared the remains from the table and they talked while cracking pistachios and dried almonds. "O mother," said Aladdin, "this lamp must be kept and shown to no one. Now I understand why that cursed Maghrebi wanted it alone and refused everything else. This lamp and also the ring I still have will bring us happiness and riches." "Do as you please, my child," said his mother, "but I never want to see that jinn again. He is too terrible and hideous." A few days later the food the jinn brought was gone and Aladdin and his mother again had nothing to eat. Then Aladdin took one of the golden dishes and went to the market to sell it. A jeweler bought it at once and gave him 100 dinars. Aladdin ran home joyfully. From that time, whenever they ran out of money, Aladdin went to the market and sold a dish, and they lived without want. Aladdin often sat in the merchants' stalls and learned how to buy and sell. He learned the price of all things and understood that he had come into great wealth and that every pebble he had picked up in the underground garden was worth more than any gem on earth. One morning, while Aladdin was at the market, a town crier cried, "People, close your shops and go indoors, and let no one look from the windows. The Princess Budur, the Sultan's daughter, is going to the bath, and no one must see her." The merchants hurried to shut their shops and the crowd streamed off the square. Aladdin suddenly wanted very much to see Princess Budur. Everyone in town said there was no girl more beautiful anywhere. Aladdin slipped to the bath and hid by the door so no one could see him. The square emptied. At the far end appeared a train of girls riding on grey mules with golden saddles. Each carried a sharp sword. Among them rode, more richly dressed than the others, a young woman. It was Princess Budur. She threw back her veil and to Aladdin it seemed like seeing the bright sun. He involuntarily closed his eyes. The princess dismounted and, passing a few steps from Aladdin, entered the bath. Aladdin went home heavy-hearted. He could not forget the beauty of Princess Budur. "They are right to say she is the fairest of all," he thought. "I swear by my head I will die the most dreadful death if I do not marry her." He went into his house, threw himself on his bed and lay there until evening. When his mother asked what was wrong he only waved his hand. At last she asked so many questions that he could not bear it and said, "O mother, I want to marry Princess Budur, or I will perish. If you do not want me to die, go to the Sultan and ask him to give Budur to me in marriage." "What are you saying, my child?" exclaimed the old woman. "Have you been struck silly by the sun? Have you ever heard of tailors' sons marrying sultans' daughters? Now go and eat some young lamb and sleep. Tomorrow you will not think of such things. I do not want lamb. I want to marry Princess Budur," cried Aladdin. "For my life, mother, go to the Sultan and ask him in marriage for his daughter for me." "My son," said Aladdin's mother, "I am not crazy to go to the Sultan with such a request. I have not forgotten who I am and who you are." But Aladdin begged his mother until she grew weary of saying no. "Very well, my son, I will go," she said. "But you know that one does not go to the Sultan empty-handed. What suitable thing can I bring to His Majesty?" Aladdin jumped up and cried joyfully, "Do not worry, mother. Take one of the golden dishes and fill it with the precious stones I brought from the garden. It will be a gift fit for the Sultan. He certainly has no such stones as mine." Aladdin seized the largest dish and filled it to the brim with gems. His mother looked at them and covered her eyes with her hand. The jewels flashed so brightly and shimmered with all colors. "With such a gift, perhaps it is not shameful to go to the Sultan," she said. "I do not know whether I will find the tongue to say what you ask, but I will summon courage and try." "Try, mother, and quickly. Go and do not delay." Aladdin's mother wrapped the dish in a thin silk cloth and went to the Sultan's palace. "They will drive me from the palace and beat me, and the stones will be taken," she thought. "Perhaps they will put me in prison." At last she stood in the palace in the farthest corner. It was early and the palace was empty, but gradually it filled with emirs, viziers, nobles and notables in motley robes, and it resembled a flowering garden. The Sultan came last, surrounded by black guards with drawn swords. He sat on the throne, began to hear cases and receive complaints, while the tallest black standing near him waved away flies with a large peacock feather. When all business was finished, he waved his hand to signal an end and left, supported by the blacks. Aladdin's mother returned home and said, "My son, I had the courage. I entered the palace and stayed there. Tomorrow I will speak to the Sultan. Be at ease. Today I had no time." The next day she went again and left without speaking to the Sultan. She went again the following day and soon became used to coming daily. She stood for whole days in the corner but could not bring herself to tell the Sultan what she wanted. The Sultan at last noticed that an old woman with a large dish came to him every day. One day he said to his vizier, "Vizier, I want to know who is that old woman and why she comes. Ask what her business is, and if she has a request I will grant it." "I obey," said the vizier. He approached Aladdin's mother and cried, "Old woman, speak to the Sultan. If you have a request, the Sultan will grant it." Aladdin's mother's knees trembled and she almost dropped the dish. The vizier led her to the Sultan. She kissed the ground before him and he asked, "Old woman, why do you come every day and say nothing? Tell me what you need." "Hear me, O Sultan, and do not scorn my words," said the old woman. "Promise me mercy before I tell you." "You shall have mercy," said the Sultan. "Speak." Aladdin's mother again kissed the ground and said, "O mighty Sultan, my son Aladdin sends you as a gift these stones and asks that you give him your daughter, Princess Budur, in marriage." She removed the cloth from the dish, and the vizier and the Sultan were stunned at the sight of such jewels. "Vizier," said the Sultan, "have you ever seen such stones?" "No, my lord Sultan, I have not," answered the vizier. "I think one who possesses such stones is fit to be the husband of my daughter. What think you, vizier?" When the vizier heard this his face turned pale with envy. He had a son he wished to wed to Princess Budur, and the Sultan had already promised her to his son. But the Sultan greatly loved jewels and had none such as lay before him on the dish. "O mighty Sultan," said the vizier, "it befits not your majesty to give your daughter to a man you do not know. Perhaps he has nothing besides these stones and you would give your daughter to a poor man. It would be best to demand of him 40 such dishes full of jewels, and 40 slave girls to carry them, and 40 slaves to guard them. Then we will know whether he is rich or not." The vizier thought to himself, "It is impossible for anyone to procure all this. He will fail and I will be rid of him." "A fine plan, vizier!" cried the Sultan, and he said to Aladdin's mother, "You have heard the vizier. Go and tell your son that if he wishes to marry my daughter let him bring 40 golden dishes like this, 40 slave girls to carry them, and 40 slaves to guard them." Aladdin's mother kissed the Sultan's hand and went home. She walked along saying to herself, "Where will Aladdin get all this? If he goes into the underground garden and gathers more stones that is one thing, but where will slaves and maidens come from?" She spoke to herself thus until she reached home. Entering, she found Aladdin and said sadly and embarrassed, "My son, I see you spoke with the Sultan. What did he say?" "Oh my child, it would have been better if I had not gone to the Sultan," she replied. "Listen to what he said." She told Aladdin the Sultan's words, and Aladdin laughed with joy. "Be calm, mother," he said, "this is the easiest thing." He took the lamp and rubbed it, and when his mother saw him do this she ran into the kitchen so as not to see the jinn. The jinn appeared and said, "O master, I am at your service. Command and you shall have it. I want 40 golden dishes filled with jewels, 40 maidens to carry them, and 40 slaves to guard them," said Aladdin. "It shall be done, O master," said Maymun, the slave of the lamp. "Would you like me to destroy a city or build a palace?" "Command me. Do only what I asked," replied Aladdin, and the lamp's servant vanished. In a very short time he reappeared followed by 40 beautiful maidens each bearing on her head a golden dish of jewels. The maidens were accompanied by tall, handsome slaves with naked swords. "Here is what you required," said the jinn and vanished. Aladdin's mother came out of the kitchen, inspected the slaves and maidens, then ordered them into pairs and proudly led them before the Sultan's palace. The whole town ran to see the procession, and the palace guards were stunned when they saw the slaves and maidens. Aladdin's mother brought them straight to the Sultan, and they kissed the ground before him and set the dishes in a row. The Sultan was overwhelmed with joy and could not speak. When he recovered he said to the vizier, "What say you? Is he not worthy to be the husband of my daughter who owns such wealth?" "He is worthy, O Sultan," sighed the vizier, though envy and bitterness ate him. "Woman," said the Sultan to Aladdin's mother, "go and tell your son that I accept his gift and consent to give my daughter Princess Budur to him in marriage. Let him come to me, I wish to see him." Aladdin's mother kissed the ground and ran home as fast as she could. She arrived and cried, "Rejoice, my son! The Sultan has accepted your gift and agrees that you marry the princess. He said so publicly. Go at once to the palace, the Sultan wishes to see you." "I have done my part, finish the business yourself." "Thank you, mother," said Aladdin. I will go now to the Sultan. Now leave me. I must speak with the jinn." Aladdin took the lamp and rubbed it, and Maymun the lamp's servant appeared. Aladdin said, "O Maymun, bring me 48 white slaves for my retinue. Let 24 go before me and 24 behind me. Bring me also 1,000 dinars and the best horse." "It will be done," said the jinn and vanished. He brought all that Aladdin commanded and asked, "What else do you wish? Shall I raise a city or build a palace?" "I can do all." "Not yet," Aladdin said. He mounted his horse and rode to the Sultan. All the townsfolk gathered to look at the handsome youth with his splendid retinue. On the market square, where the crowd was thickest, Aladdin took from his pouch a handful of gold and threw it down. Everyone leapt to gather the coins, and Aladdin kept tossing until his bag was empty. He rode to the palace and the viziers and emirs welcomed him at the gate and escorted him to the Sultan. The Sultan rose to meet him and said, "Welcome, Aladdin. I regret not having known you earlier. I hear you wish to marry my daughter. I consent. Is everything prepared for the wedding?" "Not yet, O mighty Sultan," answered Aladdin. "I have not built a palace befitting the princess's rank." "When will the wedding be?" asked the Sultan. "A palace cannot be built so quickly." "Do not worry, O mighty Sultan," Aladdin replied. "Wait a little." "Where will you build the palace, Aladdin?" asked the Sultan. "Would you build it in front of my windows, on that vacant lot?" "As you wish, O mighty Sultan," answered Aladdin. He took his leave of the king and returned home with his retinue. At home he took the lamp, rubbed it, and when the jinn Maymun appeared he said, "Now build a palace such as has never existed on earth." "Can you do it?" "I can," cried the jinn in a voice like thunder. "By morning it will be ready. You shall be pleased." Indeed, on the next morning a magnificent palace rose upon the vacant lot. Its walls were laid of gold and silver bricks and the roof was of diamonds. The palace was so tall that Aladdin had to climb upon Maymun's shoulders to see it. Aladdin inspected all the rooms and said to Maymun, "O Maymun, I have a little jest. Break that column so the Sultan will think we forgot it. He will try to build it himself and fail, and then he will see that I am stronger and richer than he." "Very well," said the jinn, and with a wave of his hand the column disappeared as if it had never been there. "Would you like to destroy anything else?" "No," said Aladdin. "Now I will bring the Sultan here." The Sultan approached his window and saw the palace that shone so brightly it hurt the eyes. He hurriedly summoned the vizier and showed him the palace. "What say you, vizier?" he asked. "Is not the man who built such a palace fit to be my daughter's husband?" "O mighty Sultan," cried the vizier, "do you not see that this Aladdin is a sorcerer? Beware lest he deprive you of your kingdom." "Envious man, vizier," said the Sultan. "I have nothing to fear, you speak out of envy." At that moment Aladdin entered, kissed the ground before the Sultan, and invited him to inspect the palace. The Sultan and the vizier toured it, and the Sultan could not cease admiring its splendor. Finally Aladdin led them to the place where Maymun had broken the column. The vizier immediately noticed the missing column and cried, "The palace is unfinished. One column is lacking." "No matter," said the Sultan. "I will set the column in place myself." Call the chief builder. Do not try, O Sultan, the vizier whispered. It is beyond your power. Look, the columns are so high you cannot see their ends, and they are encrusted with precious stones from top to bottom. Be silent, vizier, the Sultan said proudly. Can I not erect a column? He ordered all the masons in the city to be summoned and gave them all his jewels. Yet their materials sufficed for only a quarter of the column. The Sultan ordered their heads cut off, but the column still was not finished. When the Sultan learned this, Aladdin told him, "Do not be sad, O Sultan. The column stands in place, and I have returned the jewels to their owners." That very evening the Sultan held a magnificent celebration for Aladdin and Princess Buder's wedding, and Aladdin and his wife went to live in the new palace. So far is all that happened to Aladdin. As for the Maghrebi, he returned to his home in Ifriqiya and long grieved and lamented. He suffered many hardships and trials trying to obtain the magic lamp, but it nevertheless did not fall into his hands, though it had been very near. Only one consolation remained to the Maghrebi. If this Aladdin died in the vault, then the lamp is there. Perhaps I can seize it without Aladdin. He pondered over this for days. One day he wished to learn whether the lamp was intact and still in the vault. He divined in the sand and saw that everything in the treasure remained as it had been, but the lamp was no longer there. His heart stopped. He continued to divinate and learned that Aladdin had escaped from the vault and lived in his native city. The Maghrebi quickly prepared and traveled over seas, mountains and deserts to faraway Persia. Again he endured hardships and at last arrived in the city where Aladdin lived. He went to the market and listened to what people said. At that time the Persians had just ended their war with the nomads, and Aladdin, who had led the army, returned to the city victorious. On the market square all spoke of Aladdin's exploits. The Maghrebi wandered about and listened, then approached a water seller and asked, "Who is this Aladdin of whom everyone speaks?" "You are clearly a stranger," answered the water seller. "Otherwise you would know who Aladdin is. He is the richest man in the world and his palace is a marvel." The Maghrebi handed the water seller a dinar and said, "Take this dinar and do me a favor. I am indeed a stranger in your city and would like to see Aladdin's palace. Show me the way." "No one can show you better than I," said the water seller. "Come." He led the Maghrebi to the palace and left, blessing the stranger for his generosity. The Maghrebi walked around the palace and, having examined it from all sides, said to himself, "Such a palace could only have been built by the lamp's slave. The lamp must be in this palace." The Maghrebi thought long and finally devised a trick by which he might obtain the lamp. He went to a coppersmith and said, "Make me 10 copper lamps and take what payment you wish, but hurry. Here are 5 dinars as a deposit." "I obey," replied the coppersmith. "Come at evening and the lamps will be ready." In the evening the Maghrebi received 10 new lamps shining like gold. He spent the night awake plotting his trick and at dawn went shouting through the city, "Who will exchange old lamps for new ones? Who has old copper lamps? I will exchange them for new ones." A crowd followed him and children jumped about crying, "Possessed! Possessed!" But the Maghrebi paid them no heed and cried, "Who has old lamps? I will swap new ones." At last he came to the palace. Aladdin himself was away hunting. In the palace remained his wife, Princess Budur. Hearing the Maghrebi's cries, Budur sent the head doorkeeper to learn his business. The doorkeeper returned and said, "He is a dervish possessed. He carries new lamps and promises a new lamp for every old one." Princess Budur laughed and said, "It would be well to see whether he speaks the truth or deceives. Is there any old lamp in the palace?" "Yes, mistress," said one of the maid servants. "I saw a brass lamp in our Lord Aladdin's room. It is green with age and useless. When Aladdin left for the hunt he had need of supplies and he called Maymun the jinn to bring things. When Maymun brought what was ordered the horn sounded and Aladdin hurriedly left, leaving the lamp upon his bed. "Bring me that lamp," Budur ordered the maid, "and you, Kafur, take it to the Maghrebi and he will give us a new one." Kafur the doorkeeper went out and handed the Maghrebi the magic lamp, and in return received a shiny new copper lamp. The Maghrebi rejoiced that his trick had succeeded and hid the lamp under his cloak. He bought an ass and rode off. Having gone out of town and seeing that no one was watching or following, the Maghrebi rubbed the lamp and the jinn Maymun appeared before him. The Maghrebi cried, "I want you to transport Aladdin's palace with all who are inside it to Ifriqiya and place it in my garden near my house. Take me there as well." "It shall be done," said the jinn. "Close your eyes and open them and the palace will be in Ifriqiya. Would you wish me to destroy the city?" "Do what I have commanded," said the Maghrebi, and no sooner had he finished speaking than he found himself in his garden in Ifriqiya before the palace. And that is all that happened to him. As for the Sultan, he woke in the morning and looked out the window, and suddenly saw that the palace had vanished and where it had stood there was a smooth level patch. The Sultan rubbed his eyes thinking he slept and even pinched himself to wake, but the palace did not return. The Sultan knew not what to think and began to weep and lament. He understood that some misfortune had befallen his daughter Budur. At the Sultan's cries the vizier came running and asked, "What has happened, O mighty Sultan? What calamity has struck you?" "Have you heard nothing?" cried the Sultan. "Look from the window. What do you see? Where is the palace? You are my vizier and answer for all things in the city, and palaces vanish beneath your nose and you know nothing. Where is my daughter, the fruit of my heart? Speak." "I do not know, O mighty Sultan," answered the frightened vizier. "I told you this Aladdin was a sorcerer, but you would not listen." "Bring Aladdin here," cried the Sultan, "and I will cut off his head." At that moment Aladdin returned from the hunt. The Sultan's servants went out to find him and, seeing him, ran to meet him.